Support for the show comes from Capital.com, a global investment platform that is becoming local as they are setting up their offices here in Dubai to service their clients better. This means Capital.com will be locally regulated and will offer local banking solutions. It is always a great time to be investing. If you haven't invested yet, you should visit their website. There's tons of learning resources on there that you can learn from. Visit Capital, that's capital.com, to start investing today. Before we start the show, I have an ask of you. I know that a lot of you are listening to the podcast but are not subscribed to the podcast. So please hit that subscribe button wherever you hear this podcast, or even on YouTube if you're watching this podcast. It really helps us in discovery. And if you're enjoying the content, I would ask you to please give us a 5-star rating and write a review. I really love reading those reviews, and it really helps the show again and getting discovered as more and more listeners tune in to Conversations with Loulou from all over the world. Thank you so much.
The biggest barrier for people to order at lunch was actually price. People didn't want to spend more than 25 dirham for lunch. And this was a huge insight that we cracked within the first year or so. So we built our business around 25 dirham. And that was a huge inflection point for us. We said, okay, we need to find a way to offer food at 25 dirham if we're going to crack lunch.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Loulou. My guest is Dana Baki, the co-founder and COO at MUNCH, a tech-enabled food delivery platform that offers discounted lunches for corporate executives across the UAE and Saudi Arabia. MUNCH was acquired by Careem in June of 2022, and since then, Dana has made yet another career pivot into space exploration. We discuss Dana's journey from corporate executive at P&G to entrepreneurship, her move to Dubai, building a business from the ground up, selling the business, and we dig deep into what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Dana, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here, and really looking forward to this conversation. You and I had a discussion offline to talk about the journey, and I think there's a lot of learnings that we can share here today. But I thought let's start from the beginning, because you mentioned that you were born and raised in the US.
Yeah.
But you said that you always had a connection to the region. I mean, how does one have a connection to the region when they're born and raised in the US?
Yeah, it's funny. My siblings were actually born in Lebanon, and I was the one born in the US. And of the three of us, I'm the one that's most connected to Lebanon now. I think a few things contributed to that. I went to a French international school in Washington, D.C., which is a pretty atypical experience, to be honest.
Very Lebanese, though.
Very Lebanese, but honestly, it was a very international school. A lot of kids from all over the world. The parents worked for the World Bank or embassies, or were just generally in D.C. for their work. And so I was actually not really exposed to Americans until I went to university.
Okay.
And so, it's funny, we would say, the Americans, as if I wasn't American, but the Americans, they went to other schools. I was Lebanese. So I always associated with being Lebanese. And, my parents did a great job of taking us to Lebanon and making sure that I take Arabic and all of that. And so I always felt very connected to that identity. And then when I went to university, I went to the University of Michigan that has a very large Arab American community. And I got very involved and was one of the people that started the Arab Student Association there, and became very involved with Arab American issues and political issues within the campus, et cetera, that had to do with people of color and the Arab community. And so it just was always a very important part of me. So in 2005, I visited Dubai for the first time when it was a very, very different place.
Yeah.
And I had said, khalas, I know that I want to move to Dubai. And although it took me, maybe 7 years to get here from that point, I always thought, wow, something amazing is happening there. Lebanon wasn't really a place that was viable to move to. And so Dubai was always the destination.
Yeah. Is it the culture that you feel more connected here?
More than the US, you
Yes.
mean? So I felt like Dubai, I think the reasons have changed over time. At the time, it was, Dubai was the Middle East, but it was the great solution
without the problems
exactly.
of the Middle East.
Exactly. So I felt like, okay, great. I'm close to home. I'm close to Lebanon. I can be in Lebanon all the time. There's a huge community, but it's an international community. So it's the best of both worlds. I get the international community that I'm used to, but I'm in the Middle East. And honestly, I always felt like if I'm going to be working and if I'm going to be contributing to an ecosystem or an economy, I want it to be a Middle East economy, because there's lots of great people working in the US and Europe and other places, but we really need as many people as possible helping to boost what we're doing here in the Arab world. And so I always wanted to be a part of that. And I think with time, and listen, I never want to leave Dubai, but my reasons, I think the proximity to Lebanon is not really a reason that I stay now. Of course, I love going to Lebanon, but that's not the reason why I'm here. I think there's just so on an international scale, not just a regional scale, I think what is being done here is incredible. And the types of projects and people you meet here, you won't meet elsewhere.
100%. I always say it like I've built my life here. I came here in 2003, and literally you build your network, you build your life, you own a home, your kids go to school here, and yeah, you meet all these amazing people. I mean, where else in the world do you rub shoulders with ministers and you're invited into government offices to talk to policymaker? It's a great opportunity. Can't really get it in a lot of other places. So you started your career in the US. You worked at P&G for 7 years.
Yep.
So what kind of prompted that move?
I had gotten my MBA while working at P&G. So there was several really intense years where I got married and did my MBA in the evenings and was commuting to work, and a lot of travel for P&G. Then I graduated and things kind of settled down. At P&G, it's an amazing company. I love it. I can't praise it more. But ultimately, the headquarters are in Cincinnati and in Geneva, and I didn't see myself in either of those places long term. I wanted to be in the region. There's something in me, there's an itch in me that if things are just like steady, then something needs to change. I constantly need a challenge and I need to be doing something. So after a year of steadiness, my itch came and it's like, okay, it's time to make a move. It's time to do something different. And so that's where I started my propaganda. Let's move to Dubai.
With your husband, your lobbying
at the time. Yeah. It's time to move to Dubai. I'm done with America. I'm done with corporate America. I'm ready for a new challenge. And honestly, it was very unlike me the way that we moved, because usually I had a plan and everything was thought out. And I honestly knew one person in Dubai moving here, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I just knew that I wanted to be here. I wanted to ideally help work on economic empowerment for women. That was the original idea that I had, but I wasn't exactly sure how I wanted to do it. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think it's a theme that has come up many times in my life where you often don't need to have the answer. And I learned this at the time, that if you trust that the right thing will happen and you are a little bit patient and spend time exploring, you'll be surprised where you land. And so, we moved here and I spent several months really just exploring and trying to meet people and getting to know the ecosystem and talking to people from all types of industries to understand what was happening. And honestly, surprisingly, so many people were willing to meet. It was an incredible way to start my journey here, really.
Were you thinking about getting a job, or were you thinking about being an entrepreneur, or there was really nothing?
So I never wanted to be an entrepreneur, right?
Okay.
Like that did not even, that if you had asked me moving here, if that was what I was planning on doing, I'd be like, very unlikely. I remember people, like when people would tell me they're starting a business, I'm like, you're crazy. Yeah. I was smart then. I knew it was a crazy thing to do. But no, I really didn't know. I was talking to people in microfinance and NGOs and venture capital and private equity and consulting. Really, I was talking to people across the gamut. I didn't have an idea. And I landed in entrepreneurship because I love food. It's core to my life. And one of the trends that was happening at the time in the US was food trucks. Mm-hmm. And that didn't exist here. And so it came out of me just being like, this is something we need to bring to the region. How can I bring the business model here? Maybe I can use that to employ women in a way that they haven't had the chance before. And that's where my initial idea that I raised for and that I started working on came about. Not because I wanted to be an entrepreneur.
This was which year?
2012.
2012. Okay.
Yes. And so I started with that idea. I raised funds for it. We started along. And then ultimately, once I was able to work more closely with the municipality here and understand what the regulations were going to be, because it was very new, right? And they hadn't figured that out at the time. There were really no food trucks at the time. So once we started working through what that would look like here, I realized it wasn't going to be the same model as what exists in the US, where you can roam and cook on the trucks and all of that. And so ultimately I said, this is not a viable business model for food trucks in itself. Maybe for restaurants that already have kitchens that want to have a food truck, it could work, but it's not going to work in the same way here. And so I went to my investors at the time and I said, hey guys, this isn't going to work the way we had intended. I'd like to return your money, which was
shocking.
Like, what do you mean? And so you could tell I was very fresh. And I think they really respected the way that I handled it, that I was very honest and transparent. And they said, okay, well, join us. So I joined. It was an early stage VC, a boutique VC called El Jal Capital. And I joined them as a partner, doing all the business development and DD across a wide range of businesses in the region, across industries, and even some in the US. So it was actually probably one of the best ways I could have learned the region, because I saw so many different industries and I had to go through so many different business models and financial models that it gave me some really good foundation. So the P&G processes and understanding and the VC work, I think, was a really good background for starting my own thing.
Yeah. So first you said you never thought of being an entrepreneur, and then you decided to become one by doing the food truck business. And then you went even further into venture capital. And then you went back to entrepreneurship. So what happened? Like, did you figure out the gaps, or what was that inflection point?
So again, it was one of those things that I wasn't planning. I was on maternity leave with my first. I had just had my first son. And a friend of mine who was visiting me and the baby said, I really want you to meet my colleague. They both worked at Barclays. I really want you to meet my colleague. He wants to do something in food. You guys should meet. And I said, sure, give him my number. And my co-founder gave me a call and we met. And
this is Zeben.
Zeben, yeah. And we met and from there, it was like really interesting discussions. We gave each other homework. We ended up, meeting on a weekly basis to compare notes and go through what we had done. And then we met in May and we both quit our jobs in July. And so it was, again, not something that I was looking for, not something I was planning. But I think, the universe hands you things and it's up to you whether you're going to grab that opportunity or not.
Yeah.
Although really I had a newborn.
I was going to say, I think that's like a really important point to kind of double click on, because for all the women that are listening now, you can start a business while you're on maternity. This is crazy.
It was.
Like, how do... I mean, because usually women like take a break. They want to spend more time with the kids, or, they take a career break. Actually, this is when the biggest drop-off in sort of like your career progression happens, is when women decide to take time off. So you actually went the other way.
Yeah, I mean, it's unplanned, of course. I truly believe that you can't plan you can't plan your life. The universe will send you opportunities, and if you don't seize them, you're going to miss out on really amazing things. And although I wouldn't be like, oh, that's the perfect time to start a business. It is not the perfect time to start a business. And if you can choose not to do it at that time, then don't. But at the same time, if there is something that you want, that you truly want and that you believe in, and maybe the timing isn't right or isn't what you would have imagined, it doesn't mean that it's not right for you at that time. And so it was difficult. In general, I was a new mom. He was a newborn. He had had a traumatic birth, and we discovered very early that he was going to have special needs. So I, as a mother, was going through a very emotional journey that I had to learn through many different things. And then I was starting a business at the same time, which had its own challenges. And so it was doubly difficult on me. And it was not easy. But at the same time, I really believed in the business and I really believed in what we were doing, and I didn't want to lose that opportunity either. You will always find a way to make it work. you'd be surprised how much a person can do when they really, really want to do something.
100%. You won't know until you push yourself. That's for sure. Did you have any worries about kind of going out and fundraising and investors, realizing and figuring out that you're a new mom, and how would that be received? I mean, I've heard. Look, I haven't had this experience personally, but I've heard some horror stories about investors really challenging women. Again, like, I think this was not intended to sort of go into this direction, but I think it's worth like that tangent. But I've heard some really crazy stories about investors sort of asking women, but you have a family, how are you going to do this? There's probably quite a bit of bias as well that we're not aware of about that. Did that kind of cross your mind at all, or?
So I was very lucky with our investors, to be honest. I was never challenged in that way. But at the same time, what I'd say is I was very clear not to talk about my family. We're talking about my business, we're talking about work, and I'm not going to bring in things that have anything else to do with that. I mean, you're not going to ask my male co-founder if he's married and has kids, so there's no reason for me to be talking about the fact that I'm a mother and have kids. And if we get to know each other personally and we want to talk about it, great, but I feel like that's something that I specifically didn't offer and nobody asked. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's if it's not a question for the male, it shouldn't be a question for the female.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to call it lucky or not. I think it's the way that it should be. I was never questioned in that way. I did have a male co-founder. Maybe that's why I wasn't. But I think if you're coming at it with that chip on your shoulder, like, oh, what if they ask me about being a da-da-da-da-da, then you're not gonna come off with the confidence that an investor needs to hear to understand, like, that's completely irrelevant. Yeah. So if I had gotten that question, I would have said, yes, I am a mother, but that's not relevant to what we're doing today.
Yeah.
Do you have kids? I would have asked that question in return. And I don't know how people would have reacted to it. But honestly, I think from my experience in the region, I have not had that happen. So I think we're moving in the right direction.
That's good. Okay, but initially you didn't go to investors anyway. I mean, you were...
We seeded the company ourselves for the first year.
You put your own money?
Yes, okay. We both put our own money for a year. And then we raised a seed round a year in, and we ultimately raised 4 times. Yeah.
So you said you gave yourself homework. So you sort of made yourselves like... Can you talk maybe a bit? Can you describe those early days? I mean, how would you kind of discuss different roles and responsibilities and equity and all of that stuff?
Yeah. So
I think I'm taking you back.
But honestly, that was such a fun time. Really, it was a fun time.
Yeah.
We started off doing things like, okay, let's build an initial financial model. Let's think through, well, what is it that we would want to build? Like, what would the product look like?
Yeah.
Like that sort of thing. And then we would go back and forth.
So describe, did you have the idea at the time?
So what we started with was we knew that we wanted to solve the problem of lunch at work. That's where we started with. Okay. Because at the time, there were very limited delivery options. It was like Deliveroo had just launched here. Foodora, which is now closed, was also launching at the same time. Talabat did have delivery, but it was expensive and it wasn't reliable at the time. Things have changed quite a bit since then. And so people weren't really ordering food delivery for lunch because it was expensive and not reliable. But people wanted better options because wherever you work, there's 3 or 4 restaurants and you're done eating the same things over and over again.
You walk down your building and then you...
Exactly. So that's where we saw a gap where we said, you know what? Lunch is a problem for everyone. How can we make lunch at work a more enjoyable experience? And so we started with that, and we thought through like, okay, you know what? You don't have time to be scrolling. And to this day, you know, I can spend like 20 minutes on Deliveroo and not make a decision on what I want to eat, right? Because you'll be like, oh, wait, do I want this? And let me... So we knew that people don't have time for that at work, and we wanted to make it easy and simple. And the original idea was we'll send them an SMS or an email with 3 options, meat, veg, light. They just reply, meat, veg, light, and we'll have a chatbot that takes the orders, charges their card, and the food will be delivered in a set window. Early days, we didn't, neither of us had technical backgrounds, and we didn't want to build something out without knowing if it was going to work. So we did it all manually, where one of us would sit at the computer. So we got a few companies where our friends worked. We had those people sign up through an Excel spreadsheet. One of us would email them the menu, okay, and sit behind the computer. And then when they replied with meat, veg, or light, would reply as if they're a chatbot, like we were pretending. Yeah. Okay, the other person would be at the restaurant.
You were Dana, the chatbot.
Yeah, exactly. The other person would be at the restaurant. Okay, call them, okay, 6 burritos. The first restaurant was Tacado. Okay, 12 burritos, 3, da-da-da, we would call them. They would place the order, and then we would deliver it ourselves. And when we would deliver it ourselves, we would then talk to the customers to be like, okay, tell us about the experience. What can we do more? We didn't have credit card at the time. They had to pay us cash. We were talking about, how important is that? So lots of learnings on the user experience at the time before building out the tech.
And it was just you and Zeben?
It was just me and Zeben in the beginning.
Wow. Okay.
And ultimately, we brought on, and that's when we were able to build the tech because he was the technical founder. I think, early on.
So how long was that period for?
We started in July and On came on in February. So it was 8 months where we were just doing product market fit type things before actually building it out.
Did you have a company?
We'd set up a company. We'd set up in BVI, and then we'd opened up in Media City, and we were in 5. We'd done all of that.
Okay, so that's important as well. I mean, that's another lesson, learning for founders is that you need to do that from the beginning.
Yes, it takes time.
Yeah,
it takes a lot of time.
And also for the financials, right? Like, because you seeded the company, so you want to track everything that you're spending and so on.
No, governance was important from the start. I think one of the questions that you asked, and I wanted to make sure to answer, is we had a partnership agreement between Zeben and I from as soon as we decided we were going to quit our jobs, we signed a partnership agreement.
Okay.
That said we're each seeding the company by this much, and whatever.
How do you split the company?
50-50.
50-50.
So
there's always questions around that, by the way. Like,
who
gets the idea? Well, who doesn't matter, you know what I mean? Who brings more, etc. But
I listen, you can look at those fine details, but ultimately at the end of the day, you're both putting your heart and soul into it.
Trust
and so
each other.
If it's a marriage, really, and it's even you end up spending more time with that person than even your spouse. So really, you have to go in with the right intentions and the right mindset. So everything was 50-50.
It does get painful, though, if it doesn't work.
Yeah, it does. It does. It does. And listen, there's always going to be issues. Even with the best co-founder relationships, it's a relationship like anything else, and it needs to be worked on. But the partnership agreement was important for us to get into place, and then the rest of the governance that came along with it. We ended up, once you start fundraising, you have to get those things in order. But actually, that's something important for investors to be able to see, like, okay, they didn't just do this to raise funds. This is how they run a business. They were planning on doing this from the start, and we had everything ready.
Did you split roles, and sort of accountability?
We did. It shifted along the years, to be honest, as the company evolved. But we split roles. In the beginning, we weren't sure exactly how we wanted to split roles. Because
you had similar backgrounds, like both of you?
No, he had more of a finance background, so that was an easy one to say, okay, you can take that piece on. But we were both so passionate about the product and how we were going to run it, and who manages the restaurants and the customers, and so I think there was a few months of trying to understand where passions lie and what should we do together and what should we split. But ultimately, we ended up splitting it, and I think that was really important because it became the recipe of our success, where we'd say, okay, this is your responsibility, this is my responsibility. Yeah. We can have discussions around what's in the other person's responsibility, but ultimately the decision maker is the person that owns that piece.
That's so important.
And so you trust each other.
Yeah. Yeah. How did it feel to sort of be running around and doing everything after? I mean, you had a job at P&G. You said he came from Barclays, so big companies. It's not like you're a small mom and pop shop. It's a massive organization with a lot of support systems. So how was that sort of transition? I mean, I know there was a little bit of time in between, but again, I think when you go out to launch your business, I think you're everything, right? You're the HR, you're the PRO, you're the legal, you're the recruiter, everything.
Yeah, that part was actually fun. Being able to have multiple hats was really fun.
So running around doing deliveries.
That part was really fun.
Dana chatbot.
All of that was really fun because you're building something from scratch, and you know that you're creating something that is yours. Yeah. So that part was totally cool. I think the part that we needed to, it took us some time to adjust to. Like I remember before we were chatbot and everything, and we were talking to a few mentors that we had. We were telling them, okay, and we're going to build this out. And they're like, why? What are you waiting for? Go for it. So we needed a few people to say like, go do it. And we're like, okay, yeah, you're right. We can. Let's do it. And we'd come out of those discussions really energized. And I think, you know, naturally coming from a P&G or a Barclays, you're a perfectionist where you're like, okay, no, you need to have it like this before you take it to a user or a customer. And we quickly were told like, no, you don't. And we're like, you're right. We don't. Let's do it. And what's the worst that can happen? We'll change it for the next day. And so I think that took a little bit to get used to. But honestly, that mindset was a huge part of the DNA of the company. The try it, learn, fail, keep going, test and learn, A/B test, go. Like, and the times that we didn't do that, because there were a few times where we forgot and didn't do that, huge mistakes were made. Really.
Okay. Why? You ended up building something?
We ended up building systems that we thought were the coolest thing ever. Like 6 months to build out this cool platform that no one used. Like, which we could have avoided it completely, but we thought we knew what people wanted. We thought, people would definitely use this. They would use all these features, of course. And ultimately they didn't. For example, we got into corporate catering. Ultimately, one of the many revenue streams was corporate catering. And at the time, people were just calling or emailing us saying like, hey, I need food for 30 people. We need it to be bites, And then we would email them options or call them, give them options. And then they'd say, okay, this one. And then we'd manage it for them. And then, so we were like, oh, you know what? We can automate all of this. And we built a whole platform where we had the menus of all the caterers on there, and they could go and they could change, and it would change the price for them. And it was such a cool system that nobody wanted. They just wanted to call someone and be like, hey, I need food for 25 people. Just make sure it's here. And so if we had checked with them, like, hey, would you use this platform? Then we would have saved ourselves.
They could have
6 months.
said yes though as well and still not used it, but okay.
It's true. But so to go back to your question, that part was fun, really, the getting our hands dirty. I think the part that was always a bit, I don't know if it's frustrating, is that you're two people in the beginning and you want to build out a team, right? And you don't know when's the right time to bring people on because you're like, wait, this is our money. And we're all, in the beginning, we weren't taking salaries, obviously, because you're not going to pay yourself with your own money. So
that's another tip to entrepreneurs as well. Again, because this whole debate on this today, like should a founder get a salary and at what point and so on. And I've seen examples of companies that are still at idea stage that are looking to raise money and they wanted to pay themselves salaries. And, if you push back on that, then you have the I don't know what you want to call them, the work-life balance brigade, or I don't know what you want to call them, that sort of come in and founders should get paid. They have families, they need to feed their kids. Okay, but it's not for everybody, right? I don't know.
From in our days, nobody took a salary. I'll say that nobody took a salary. So we started paying ourselves a salary once we had fundraised a year and a bit, maybe a year and 3 months before we took a salary. More power to people if they can get it both ways. I guess, I don't know, but we didn't. And so there was always a question of, all right, how long do we do this, just you and I? When do we bring on the right person? Of course, Aoun was the first person. We needed an engineer. And he didn't come on as a co-founder in the beginning. We made him a co-founder after several years because really, he was core to everything. And so we brought on our first engineer. And man, that took months to find the right type of person that we could afford, but that had the skills and all of that. And then even the next hire, okay, well, how can we justify it? And is it the right thing? And so that was a big challenge is, when you have very limited resources and you haven't fundraised, how do you know when to bring people on?
Yeah. It's one of the most difficult things, I think, when you're a startup is that you need like really high caliber people and you can't afford them. And then like you're so early on, you can't convince them. And then you have to kind of hire, sort of mid-level or even junior people and sort of work with them to get them up to speed. And it's very challenging actually at the beginning. But that's why sometimes you need more than 2 co-founders. You might need 3 or 4. Like there's usually 3 or 4 people as co-founders. So you started hiring those people when you started seeing some revenues, like at what point?
We knew that we needed we needed an engineer. Yeah. So as soon as we figured out what exactly we wanted to build, that's when we started looking for an engineer. And we had one of our mentors who had a technical background. and helped us think through, okay, what type of engineer we would need, et cetera. And honestly, we talked to like 60 people. And we were really like at the point where we're like, we're never going to find someone that is going to be what we need from a technical standpoint and someone that we can afford.
What wasn't working? Was it the salary they wanted?
Either it was salary
skills?
or it was skills, one or the other. The people that had the skills were coming from corporate jobs and expected to be paid as a corporate job. So they didn't have the right mindset of the startup mentality. It's funny, my Zeben had contacted On over LinkedIn amongst many people we had contacted. And I remember Zeben and I were sitting and he's like, oh, this is my last one. I don't feel like going, because we'd gone to so many. And I was like, just go. Like, you're not going to ditch him. Like, just go. But we had like zero hope. And I was like, don't be rude. Go. And alhamdulillah, he went. He's like, he called me. He's like, this is it. I found him there. And the next day I met with him. And it was... and I remember our technical mentor was like, this is a Ferrari sitting in the garage.
Wow.
He had come here from Pakistan and was working for a bank that had, he had taken any job because he just wanted to come to the UAE. So he saw this as an amazing opportunity to be a part of something meaningful. And he always had, the entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
And so it just all aligned.
Then you went out fundraising. How were those discussions? I mean, you weren't like a tech kind of business.
No, it was early days though. So, those were the days where there were 3 VCs that existed at the time.
Yeah.
There weren't that many.
So did you think to go to VCs?
We did. We did think to go to VCs. We spoke to, so I guess one of the things that we did right, and that I always give as advice to entrepreneurs, is we started talking to VCs way before we started fundraising. We weren't really thinking of fundraising at the time, but it ended up paying dividends. We were getting their feedback on the idea. We're like, you know what, let's get their thoughts. They see so many ideas. We want to get as many people as possible's thoughts. And I think, this is a general theme throughout everything we've done. It's like you're going to learn from discussions with people, and don't be closed and think like, oh, people are going to copy or whatever it is. Like, the more you share, the more you're going to learn from who you speak to. And people have very interesting feedback. So we spoke to all of the VCs for advice in the beginning. All 3 of them. All 3 of them. But even mentors and things as well. To be very honest, a lot of them were like, what are you doing? This isn't going to work. Like, their feedback wasn't like, great idea, please go. They would bring to life many, many concerns that they had, which was super important for us to hear what their concerns were. And it was important for us, not because it discouraged us, because a lot of people can get discouraged from those discussions, but instead for us to understand, like, okay, they might be right. These are going to be challenges. They may be wrong, and this is why we think they're wrong, or they may be right, and this is what we need to think through, or maybe we need to think about this in advance because they have a point. So it was important for us to hear the negative feedback because it helped us think through the business. So we started early, and we kept them posted on our journey, and we'd be like, oh, we spoke to you 6 months ago. This is where we are today. We took your feedback. You told us this was a concern. It was a good point. This is what we did. And so we kept up those discussions with them. And by the time we were fundraising, they were rooting for us, right? They're like, okay, so, you guys have come a long way. You've taken our feedback. And so they really, whether they believed in the idea or not, I think they had a lot of respect for Zeben and I as entrepreneurs. They wanted to see us succeed. So whether they were going to invest themselves, and some of them chose to invest, or even if they were choosing not to invest, they were more than happy to open doors for us to say, okay, this doesn't fit what we're looking for, but here are a few people that may be interested. And so it really helped build a network of supporters throughout. And so many of the VCs that said no to us throughout the years, and many VCs said no throughout the years, were actually huge advocates for us and were willing to make introductions even if they weren't investing, because we had built that rapport with them.
Okay. And did you go to family offices? Did you go to other kind of strategic type investors?
To start, it was a few VCs, angels.
Yeah.
So the first round was, the only VC that came in, 2 VCs came into the first round, Arzan and Wamda. And then the rest were like DAI and then particular angels. And, seed at the time was like $500,000. Like, that's what, now I know we're talking about much bigger seed rounds, but it was only $500,000. And at the time that was a lot.
Yeah.
And then we ended up raising more and more. Ultimately, we raised 16 million by the end, but it was mostly VCs towards the end. We had a few family offices in Saudi in particular, the angels that had started, but most of it was VCs.
Yeah. What really worked in the business, looking at it today, what were some of like the key inflection points, again, within the business, or what really worked for you?
I think, so one is when we were able to solve a problem in the industry that others weren't able to solve.
So there was food delivery.
There was.
At the time. I mean, you're talking a few years into your business, right? So
Yes.
there was the Ketopies as well. So like the whole cloud kitchen. Mm-hmm. And so you were solving, obviously, the lunch. You were still solving the lunch.
Yes.
Okay.
So ultimately, by the end, we were doing meals throughout the day. But for a large portion of the history of the business, it was lunch at work. I think this was an important place for us to start, because when you look at food delivery, and even if you look at food delivery today, it's primarily dinner and weekends. Mm-hmm. None of the delivery players had solved for how to get people to order at lunch. The biggest barrier for people to order at lunch was actually price. People didn't want to spend more than 25 dirham for lunch. And this was a huge insight that we cracked within the first year or so of the company. So we were
ask people?
Yeah,
or?
so we did a lot of user interviews, and we were serving a few companies at the start, and people weren't ordering every day. And so we asked them, one of the key questions, what would get you to order every day? They said, well, okay, the variety is one. I need to find something I want to eat. And honestly, I can't spend 50 dirham or 60 dirham a day on food, right? Like I can't do that. Yeah. So I would only do it if it's special. And we said, okay, well, at what price point would you be able to order every day? And it became a very clear theme, 25 dirham. So we built our business around 25 dirham. And that was a huge inflection point for us. We said, okay, we need to find a way to offer food at 25 dirham if we're going to crack lunch. We brainstormed for a long time, and what we came up with was the subscription model that ended up completely shifting the business, where you paid 39 dirham a month and then were able to access food from the restaurants that you love for 25 dirham. It worked because that membership fee, that 39 dirham, would cover some of the cost, but also because we were giving restaurants orders off peak, before their lunch rush, and giving them bulk orders because they were going to deliver the same meals to one building, and it would be, 10, 15, 20 orders to one building. It made it so that the math made sense for the restaurants even to give it to us at a discount. So,
but that's a pretty steep discount.
It was. So
it depends on the restaurant.
It depends on the restaurant, but they would discount a portion, and then we would, whatever wasn't covered, we would cover it with the membership. So it was a delicate balance. We had to do a lot of modeling, and we had to estimate, like, okay, we don't expect everyone to order every day. Some people will order every day, but some people won't. So how does it average out? For some people, we were losing a lot of money on their membership. And for some people, we were making a lot of money on their membership. It's kind of like Amazon Prime, right? Mm-hmm. Some people use Amazon Prime every day, and some people have Prime and use it once a month.
Yeah.
That's the logic behind it. So
did you subsidize?
Did we, in
like
the beginning?
Were you yeah.
In the beginning, we did. Until we were able to drive the volume that we needed, we did subsidize. Often it was, with the restaurants too, we needed to build our reputation with restaurants. For some restaurants, we would say that didn't know us, but that we wanted to have on board, we would say, okay, we'll do it commission free in the beginning, and we'll prove to you that we'll be able to build bulk orders for you. And then once we were able to prove that to them, then we started charging commission, for example. And that helped us obviously get to where we needed to be. So there was always a clear solution to say, okay, this is where we need to be in order. And it was very realistic to say, okay, we know we can get there. But if we weren't there on day one, we had to build that out. So that was a big one, being able to...
So figuring out the right price point.
Exactly.
The right sort of mechanism, which is a combination of subscription plus on demand, basically.
Yes. And then that drove stacking, right? So when you're able to send bulk orders, which is something, a delivery today is not able to do. It's always one-to-one, right? Yeah. It's not like they're delivering other people's food. So they take, basically, by stacking, you mean multiple orders together. So they were taking on average, each bike was taking between 8 and 10 meals versus one. So for aggregators, that was huge. No one had cracked stacking before. No one had cracked lunch before, and no one had cracked corporate. So we owned corporate relationships. It wasn't just people ordering at work. we had relationships with HR and companies. Like we had, and that's why they were ordering catering through us, although we hadn't planned for it. That ultimately we managed everything food for companies.
So your entry was through the company, not through not like
either it would be through HR, and then HR would send it to their teams. Or if we started serving a company, we would ask them like, hey, can you connect us to your HR so that we can give you and others even better deals? And then they would introduce us to their HR. We would always try to build a relationship with the HR of the company because, new people are joining the company and we want to make sure that they know we exist. We didn't want to continuously have to target that same company over and over and over again. So there was a huge BD marketing play and marketing playbook that we had.
And that's different as well from what the delivery aggregators do today.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the fact that we were in an industry that was very saturated and not particularly sexy, to be honest, for an investor, but that we were able to really kind of disrupt the way things were being done and tackle a category that that they weren't able to tackle with their business model, made it very appealing.
But they do serve, you can order lunch through any of the food aggregators. So did you worry about that? As competition started, heating up, Talabat, was very, I think it's probably the largest player today in the market. Careem Food, I don't know what year they started, but probably post-COVID actually.
Yeah, after COVID.
Yeah, so you had Deliveroo, Talabat.
So they always existed from the time we started. I think the biggest compliment, when we knew we were onto something, when they each created their own 25 dirham type programs.
Okay.
So Deliveroo did it for a few months and Talabat did it for a few months. But the way they did it was they weren't able to bundle. So what they did, they'd say all of Media City, here are the meals that you can get for 25 dirham, okay? Or all of whatever area, here are the meals you can get for 25 dirham.
Oh, so they used the 25 dirham.
Oh yeah, they did. They did for years. They tried multiple times and they couldn't crack it because there was no subscription. So you didn't have a sticky user that is going to check every day. When you get a membership, you're going to use your membership.
Yeah.
Okay. So one, they hadn't created the subscription model that would get people to come in. Two is it was the same restaurants every day, right? So they would have 10 restaurants in Media City that offered meals at 25 dirham. Okay, great. But after you've tried it a few times, you're not going to keep ordering from those 10 restaurants. We had 500 restaurants on our platform. So we were able to offer a huge variety that they weren't able to offer. And there was beauty of our algorithm. So we had built an algorithm that showed people the restaurants that we thought they would like based off of their ordering patterns. It took us a while to build that algorithm, and it's one of the key pieces of technology that made us attractive for acquisition. But to be able to say, okay, if Loulou ordered this meal, she probably would like these meals as well. So we'll show her those restaurants more often. When you're just putting deals together and bundling them and saying, here are 25 dirham deals, those are just deals. That's not a business. And so I think they tried, but they couldn't within the framework of their product. In order to crack it, you needed a different product.
And changing that kind of consumer behavior to order in advance, that must have been something as well, right? Because usually, I don't know how good people are in planning their meals. Like if you ask me, I'm always kind of like, oh, it's 12:30, I need to eat something. I grab my phone and I try to order something. So to kind of shift that behavior as well.
Yeah, so we experimented with a lot of things, reminders. We would set reminders in different places. We would get people to put, how do you want to be notified? Sometimes we tried testing the night before. If you send a reminder, does it work better? So we tried a lot of different things, getting people to pre-order for the week. And different people have different patterns. So ultimately, at the end, you could pick how your preferences for notifications and get that. A lot of people adjusted. Some people were never able to adjust, right? Like that was one of the cancellation reasons was I keep forgetting to order.
Yeah.
That's something that some people weren't able to adjust in that way. But a lot of people, most people really did start doing it. And the thing is, in corporate, it became a culture of the company. People would discuss what's on lunch on or on munch on at the time. Like, oh, what are you ordering? What did you guys check the menu today? What did they put for us? And then people would get excited and it would become a cultural piece of teams ordering together and eating together. So you often wouldn't forget because your teammates would be ordering from munch on as well, which is another big differentiator versus what the aggregators were able to do because nobody cared what was on deal on Talabat that day, right? There was a cool, this is our menu at Leo Burnett and what are they showing us at Leo Burnett? internet or whatever company.
Yeah.
It was a big differentiator in corporate. Halla, where we hit a huge challenge was COVID, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
We went from corporate lunch, zero. Like, obviously, businesses were closed. Everyone was working from home. So we had an existential crisis as a company. You know, luckily we had
How many
fundraised.
were you at the time?
Over 100. At the time, we were like 120, 130, something like that. That was a huge shock
It's
to the
interesting,
system.
actually, because Careem's acquisition happened just before COVID. So they had sort of figured out that, oh my God, ride hailing is gonna go to zero, and they started focusing on food at the time. So you were kind of in the spot where you have this sort of big competitor as well, shifting to focus on food.
Absolutely.
Right? And
food skyrocketed. Food and groceries skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Just not our business.
Yeah, not the corporate lunch.
And so...
so what'd you do?
We had to really think through how we were going to pivot. I mean, I can't tell you the number of things we tried. We got into grocery, for example. We tested and tried everything. We went into residential, so we had to update the product to be able to serve residential. We updated the product to be able to do breakfast, lunch, and dinner, which is why we changed the name from Lunch On to Munch On, all during COVID, because you don't want to order dinner from Lunch On, right? Like you need to... So we needed to shift that way. That obviously shifted our operations significantly. Basically, every part of the business needed to be rejiggered to be able to serve people during COVID.
Do you have to downsize?
We did not during that time. Ultimately, we did downsize in like slow pieces here and there where we could, but we didn't do it at first. And we kind of broke it up into...
What were you thinking at first? Like, this is going to blow over in a few months?
We didn't know.
Or did you think, this is the end of the world?
No, we thought that, maybe it's a month or two. We didn't realize what COVID was going to ultimately become. Had we known, I think we would have handled it differently. I think we handled it pretty well, but like we would have done things differently if we knew it was going to take so long for people to get back into the office. We always expected, okay, in a month or two, people will be back.
Yeah.
Even a year and a half later, even now, you still find that there's a hybrid. And so you need to be able to serve home and work. And alhamdulillah, we did that.
But you lose your edge, no?
So it was really
Then you
difficult.
really had to head with the aggregators.
Yeah, so it was really difficult to... So not only were we competing with the aggregators, the biggest competition were people's fridge. Because you're at home.
Yeah.
You can just go down and grab something, right? Like you don't need to order food delivery when you're working from home, whatever it is. And so always our biggest competitors were people's fridge at home and just going down and getting anything from the coffee shop downstairs. That was always the bigger competitor than aggregators because people are not necessarily... They were never like, should I order Munch On or Deliveroo? Deliveroo had its use case and Munch On had its use case. Like if I'm ordering dinner, I'm going to get, food with friends or with the family, I'm going to order Deliveroo. But if I'm ordering for myself alone, I'm going to order Munch On. The aggregators were never our biggest worry. It was always people have other options. It's not like they don't know how to get food and to get food at a reasonable price.
Yeah.
So we had to experiment a lot. Ultimately, what enabled us to crack residential was in the way that we positioned our subscription. We did a test where we offered people a meal a day for 500 dirham. Mm-hmm. Okay? Which if you did 25 dirham, times 20 plus 30, if you did that math, like it's actually like 489 versus 500. But when you put it in that way, like, oh my God, for 500 dirham, I get lunch every day. Once we started talking in that way, it cracked residential.
So it was still the lunch, though.
It was still the lunch. They had multiple windows to order from. So that was another thing. We gave them multiple windows to order from.
So for dinner, you order before 4 o'clock,
like
for
if
example.
you order by 5:30, you get your food between 6:30 and 7, for example. So you could order throughout the day. We gave them many more options. So we were giving usually 3 or 4 when we were doing the office. In residential, we needed to give 6 to 9 because people wanted more options. And when you're serving, it's really difficult to serve a residential tower with different preferences. Like you and your neighbor have nothing in common and you're not going to necessarily order the same food, right?
Yeah.
So we had to expand the variety. So there was a lot of things that took time to shift to get to the point where we were able to serve people the way that they wanted to be served. But we got there. And I think it was a blessing that we had fundraised right before COVID hit because it gave us that time to be able to pivot and experiment and try.
Otherwise, it would have probably been game over.
Yeah, who would have wanted to fund a corporate lunch company?
Wow. So
Nobody.
timing, again, is so important.
Yeah.
So it was again the subscription that sort of saved the day, like not letting like the on-demand customer order on demand. So it was kind of locking them with a subscription. Interesting. Gyms should learn something from you. I mean, I have a gym subscription that I hardly use. No,
but
seriously.
do you cancel it? You don't
No,
cancel
I don't
it. There
cancel.
you go.
I know.
So we learned from them.
It's the biggest waste of money. Interesting. So it was a subscription again, and you found that people were okay to pay $500 in advance.
Yes. And they would use it. And the thing that it showed, our frequency was between 14 and 18 times a month, which is insane. A Deliveroo or a Talabat will have a frequency of 3, 4, 5 times a month maximum, really, per user. You know, if you're able to get a person to use your app 14 out of 20 business days, you're onto something. And I think that's what got them to pay attention.
So what didn't work?
What didn't work?
I mean, you know, clearly you were acquired by Careem. Obviously, you could have continued as well, right? So there were, I'm sure, different paths and different options.
Yeah.
But it wasn't kind of like the wildfire type business growth like Careem had, for example. So what were some of the challenges that you guys had?
One was operations was really tough. In the UAE, we didn't have a driver fleet. But in Saudi, we had a driver fleet. And we had to build out the whole driver app and all of that. But each of them posed their own operational challenges in being able to manage a fleet. So there was that was a huge synergy between us and Careem, because obviously they are a fleet business at the end of the day. And that wasn't our strength because we're not utilizing our drivers all day. The beauty of what we do is that we use drivers when they're not being used, but we're not doing delivery every day. Like, we're not constantly doing deliveries. So it becomes difficult to utilize the drivers all day because that's not our business model. So the operations piece was tough, and it only made sense to have that be some sort of partnership with an operational partner that had that fleet ultimately. So that was something that was challenging. I think it's not that things didn't work. I think what where we ultimately netted out was that we make sense as a part of a broader food player at the end of the day. And I think one of the things that I learned from this
is it a broader food player, or is it part of like a super app kind of offering?
It could be a super it could be a super
like part
app.
of a Talabat or part of a super app Careem?
I think it makes the most sense as a part of Super App Careem because they had built a subscription as well. They already had their Careem Plus subscription that they had a vision for, and we fit beautifully within that as the food section of that super app and of the subscription that they were trying to build. Ultimately, it could have been a Deliveroo or a Talabat. It could have been even a logistics player that wanted to get into food, right? There were many different ways that it could have gone, or it could have been a cloud kitchen that wanted an app to use
Actually,
it.
that would have made
So
sense.
there was a lot of different places that we could fit. One of the big learnings, though, and I think this can maybe help entrepreneurs along the way, is that we only really seriously started thinking about the exit towards the end, towards the last few year or so of our journey. And although we had gotten the question throughout the years, all investors will ask that question, we would always lay out like, okay, we can do this. It could be this way. We could grow and be IPO. We could be acquired. Like, we showed all the options. And it was more to show like there are exit options. But we never really sat down and had like a come to Jesus moment, the two of us, to say, okay, like realistically, really, when do we want to exit? How do we want to exit? What do we think is a realistic price? And therefore, what decisions should we be making along the way that would make this make sense?
That's so important.
And so
even though, actually, interesting. So a couple of comments here. So some entrepreneurs would say, we're not building to exit. So there's that sort of argument. There's the argument that, as you said, you put something on a slide, but who knows really what happens. You can't really control the time of an acquisition unless you plan to go on IPO.
Yeah.
But I think what you said is so interesting, is kind of have a target and work like reverse engineer it basically, because that would drive how much money you raise and the cadence of how much the money raised and so on.
And if you enter new markets, if you don't enter new markets, really, listen, this is obviously something that can be changed. What you decide in the beginning can evolve just like the business evolves. But I think there's a huge difference between someone that says, and we would say, we would be the ones to say, we're not building this to exit. We're happy to work in this business forever. Tab, great. But if someone told me that today, I'd be like, that's cool. So are you just looking to be profitable and own the business yourself for the rest of your life? Because if you're looking to have this be a lifestyle business where you're running your business for the rest of your life, there's nothing wrong with that. That's beautiful. But then don't take VC money and don't do this, then don't do that. If you're going to take these options, these fundraising options, then you need to realize that an exit is important, or that there needs to be a way for them to cash out and make their money, or it doesn't make sense. Something that at least we didn't do, and I think many entrepreneurs kind of kick that can down the road to see like, okay, let's see how much we grow, let's see where we get, and that you never know, maybe you'll grow exponentially. And if that happens, you can reassess and say, okay, you know what? Actually, we're growing way faster than we expected. So maybe now we can actually raise more than we had planned. Yeah. Or maybe now we think we can get acquired for more than we had planned. You should constantly be reassessing this. But I think if you kind of just take it as a given, like we'll figure it out when we get there, then you're probably not going to get to a win-win situation at the end unless you're very, very lucky.
So since you didn't have sort of that exit number goal in your mind, like, is this going to be a $50 million business, a $100 million business, a $500 million business? How did you make decisions on fundraising? Like, were you trying to cover a runway for, I don't know, a year, 18 months, 24 months, whatever? Was there because that's such an interesting insight, actually. Yeah.
I think, listen, we evolved in the beginning. Towards the end, we were absolutely thinking about the exit, right? Like, how much should we fundraise? All of that in the last couple of years was on our mind. It just wasn't prior to that. When we originally were doing our seed round and, we had raised 10 million in a safe right before COVID, which I'll tell you again,
that was the last 10 million.
No, it wasn't the last amount that we had raised, but it was the biggest chunk that we had raised. And again, I'll tell you, it was a blessing that we raised that. So I don't regret it. It was a blessing. It enabled us to continue. But at that point, if you had asked us, what do you consider as your acquisition strategy? We would have a number, but it was pre-COVID. It was, during COVID, it became irrelevant. The number changed once you went into COVID. Also, we entered Saudi, which changed the game. So my point is that you need to constantly be re-evaluating that as you go through. And listen, you might have a plan and that plan will change. Now, COVID is a black swan event. It's not something that you can plan for. But what was important was that we started doing that towards the end, which was really important for us, and ultimately is why we decided to sell, right? We had other options. Should we fundraise or should we sell? And we felt like, okay, this was the right time for us to sell because we had those discussions and we said, okay, well, this is what makes sense. And we didn't think it made sense to hold on because, our time also as entrepreneurs, there's an ROI for the extra years that go into it. And also our VCs have put money in and we need to make sure that it makes sense for everyone. Ultimately, you need to do what's best for the shareholder, not only what's best for you. Both are important. But when you again, this is something people don't realize. When you're taking people's money, it's a serious responsibility. And we took that very seriously. Yeah.
You're the second founder I've had on this podcast that talked about that. So I had the guys, I'd recommend people who are interested in the story as well to check out the episode of Karzati with Hassan Jafar and Marwan Shahar. And they also had the option to exit to Kavak. At the time, they were a used car business, basically. And then they also had the option to fundraise. And they debated it a lot. And then they realized like the markets were frothy at the time, and like it was, they didn't think that the valuations will hold for a long time, so they decided to exit. They didn't think they can grow the company much more. So it's important to make those decisions. When you raised the 10 million, is this what you wanted to raise, or were there like okay?
We were on fire at the time. Our business was doing super well.
That's a big amount,
Yeah, we were doing very, very well. We were growing really fast. And COVID hit at the worst possible time. Ultimately, it was fine because we were able to still launch in Saudi during COVID and continue to grow. But it was a big hit. But yeah, we were able to raise because we were doing so well.
So when you signed that share transfer, right? Did you do
Yeah.
a share transfer with Careem? How was it? What's the document that you have to
It was
sign?
a sales agreement.
Sales agreement.
Yeah.
All right. So what was the first thing that went into your mind?
There was definitely relief. Listen, those months to get that deal.
So that was mid 2022,
Yeah.
July?
We announced it in June, but it obviously was something we'd been working behind the scenes
How long
for
did it
some
take
time.
behind the scenes?
I mean, we'd been in discussions with Careem for a long time before then. We've known them for quite some time. The serious discussions, I think, started in January, February, and then ultimately we closed in June. Again, we'd been talking to them about the Series B before that, and we'd known them for a while. So, it's one of those things that if you should be working in the background years before you consider actually build like an acquisition. Just like investors, they need to know you. They need to know your business. You need to be thinking outside the region because a lot of the people that are interested in acquiring in the region are people that are not here. So you need to actively be talking to the businesses that could be interested in coming in. And we did. We talked to all of the players throughout the years.
Did you worry, by the way? Because also I think that might be a concern for entrepreneurs. I mean, you're talking to a competitor. Did you worry that, they might, I don't know, learn more about your business and then say, what, thank you very much?
We were always careful about how much we were sharing with these competitors. At the end of the day, what gave us, I guess, confidence is that, like, if they're going to do it, they're going to do it. Like, it's not like...
They figure it out eventually,
and so ultimately, it wasn't something that stopped us from discussing with them. And honestly, I think it's the right thing to do because you need to build that network. You need to be able to, call these people up and have those discussions with them, not only for the industry, but also, if you're interested, if you decide like, okay, this is the time I want to acquire the business, that's not when you start building a relationship.
Yeah.
It's often too late at that point. And so they need to know you and they need to know your business.
Yeah. So what went through your mind?
So it was, it was a 6-month, really stressful process. I think by the time we signed it, it was a huge relief that it was signed. It was very bittersweet. On the one hand, I was so relieved that we had signed and that it was done. On the other hand, it's your baby, right? It's something that you've built for 8 years. I loved our team. Really, I'm one of the things I'm most grateful for are the people that I worked with and the people that contributed to MUNCH. I knew that the team would be really proud, but I also knew that not the whole team was going to be acquired. And so that was very painful because the people that weren't brought in is not because they weren't performing, it's because, it's a different business and there's not necessarily room for them in the new business. When you think of acquisition, you don't necessarily realize that there are some icky feelings that come along with it too, because it's something you built and it might not come to fruition exactly, in that like glorious image that you have in your mind.
Yeah.
So it was very mixed.
Yeah. And did you think, what am I going to do now? Like, was that like an immediate afterthought?
No, it was very much, there were so many things I wanted to do that I was not able to do during my time at MUNCH because I had listen, life was so hectic. And I know all entrepreneurs will understand that, but so many things got put on the back burner. So many dreams were like, okay, I'll do this at some point. I'll do that. And so I finally felt like, okay, this is the time that I can do these things.
And you told me when we spoke earlier, you told me that you had your a second child as well.
I did before selling the company.
Before selling the company.
So I had 2 children by the time I sold the company.
Yeah.
They're now 9 and 6.
So you went through another maternity and kept running the business.
Yeah. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's definitely a lot.
It is a lot. Fundraising, taking on that responsibility, a team of 100 people, managing ups and downs, COVID, family. I mean, did you have time for yourself?
No, I think... I think that was actually something I didn't do very well, was put the boundaries and take care of myself.
Is that realistic though, Dana?
Listen, I don't know.
I mean, everybody...
The answer, I don't know. I don't know. I think towards the end...
If you're a high-growth startup raising $10 million in venture capital money, I mean, really, you're still a startup, right? It's not like you have a a massive team, there's still a huge responsibility on you.
It
and
is.
your co-founders and your team.
So I did the best I could, the best I knew how to do at the time. Okay, that's what I'll say. Was it the best I could do? I don't know. Now I would hope that I would do things differently, because I really didn't take care of my health. I really didn't take care. Like I really brushed things under the rug and just kept going, kept pushing, to the detriment of personal life, my health, even mental health. Like you're not taking care of yourself. And so, towards the end, I remember, and I don't know if this is healthy or not, but I remember towards the end, I was trying to take better care of myself. And I did a lot of things that were to help me de-stress and all of that.
Like?
But I got into painting, I got into triathlons. And so the example that I'm going to give
Oh my God, something that's so hard as well.
But let me tell you why. So it's super intense. I guess I'm an intense person, but
triathlon.
But the reason triathlons actually helped, I remember I was having a call. I would do these roundtables with the women in the company where they could ask me anything.
Yeah.
And I remember they were like, how? Like, why triathlons?
Yeah.
How? And I was like, guys, the only way I can explain it is that triathlon training was so tough that it was the only thing that would get my mind off the business, because I would be focused, like, just survive. Like, this hour, you need to survive this hour. Don't die. Like, don't die. You need to, like, get through the swim in the sea or whatever it is. That, like, the business was not on my mind. So, like, that complete disconnect where I was I was actually really only focused on something else was so helpful to me. And come in, it was very intense. You don't need to do something that intense, but I needed that, because otherwise I was always multitasking. Like I was.
So you couldn't meditate, for example.
Now I can, but at the time, no.
Yeah,
it was way too difficult.
Because they say meditation is very helpful.
It is incredibly powerful. At the time I wasn't into it.
Yeah.
Finding those things that can really enable you to disconnect, forcing yourself to actually take that, a day or two to really stop is important. And I never did that. Facing like hard truths.
Did you have any coaches or therapists or something?
At the end, I did. Towards the end, I got a coach.
Because I'm sure
like
a therapist would probably tell you triathlon is probably not a good idea with all the pressure that you have already.
It worked for me. It worked for me.
But
I did. At the end, I had a therapist and a coach. And I wish I had done it sooner.
Yeah.
So I think it was very hard. And, for men and women, I think I hear people talk about and more often how difficult it is. And I think it's getting better within the ecosystem, being very honest about it. But I think it's something we still need more. And, you don't want someone to get to the point of burnout. You don't want someone to like destroy the other parts of their lives because they're so focused on their business. Like there needs to be a better balance. And I think those sorts of discussions need to be had very transparently with mentors, therapists, coaches, VCs, whatever it is. We need to bring that more to the forefront.
I mean, it's such an important topic, but I feel like you only get to that sort of later in the game. Like I was also having a chat with Ali Habib. He's very much into sports now. He's taking care of what he eats. Like he's doing what he wants to do as well. But again, I asked him, like, could you have done this in the early days of Anghami? He said, impossible, right? So I think I hate to say it, but I think it's just part of the game. Like, if you really want to be at the height of success, and I mean, it just takes hard work.
100%. I think it's more so, it's not that,
it's the
I guess
same
what
as
I'm saying
everything.
is that you need to make choices. I think ultimately at the end of the day, it's around the choices that you're going to make and being very transparent about those choices. You can't do it all. You can't do it all. So you need to be able to say, okay, I'm going to be doing this, which means that I'm not going to be able to do this and this. And I'm not even going to try to do this and this because I'm going to do it badly. And it's going to make me feel guilty that I'm not able to do it and that I'm not good enough and that I'm letting people down and that or whatever it is. So just be very transparent from the beginning. I'm choosing this.
Yeah.
And in order to succeed, I need to put 100% in this. And therefore, this is going to have to go. And I think that's where, when people say, can you have it all? Probably not. You are going to need to make choices. And I think just continuously having those very honest conversations with yourself and your family and your friends and your whatever it is and your coach is really important, because I didn't. I really just tried to do it all and kept going. And that's not healthy.
Did you have to learn to be okay with not doing it all?
Yeah, I think
Especially around like family and stuff like that. I mean, that was a big deal for me as well. When you're running a business, you always have this tension, right? Like, I need to spend more time with the kids. Oh no, I need to go to this meeting. Or and yeah, again, also your partner, I think, plays a very important role in that, or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think so. Definitely, your partner plays a very important role. I was very well supported, alhamdulillah. I've always had a great support network, and that was really helpful. I think I was probably the hardest on myself. I put expectations on myself that nobody was putting on me. So I think really realizing, like, okay, but why? Is this actually important? And then making choices like that to say, okay, I'm not going to be able to do this and I'm okay. Or this is important to me and I'm going to put boundaries. So for example, and this is something I did from the start, so the clear red line for me was my kids. I was going to see my kids every day. My team knew between 6 and 8, I don't take meetings. I'll answer you on Slack in that time, but I will not take a meeting between 6 and 8. And, I'll come back online after 8 and we'll have those discussions. But that was something that I was very, very strict with. I'm going to be there. I'm going to have dinner with my kids. And that was something I was very clear about from the start. So it wasn't so much spending time with my kids that was something that bothered me, but it was, things that small things like, the schools are like, come in at 10 a.m. to read a story no, I can't come in at 10 a.m. to read a story.
I was there this morning, by the way. I had something for my son from 9:20 to 9:50. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so these things, it's not because I don't want
to. And it's unfair on the kid, by the way, and it's unfair on the parent. Like, it's unfair on the kid if the parent doesn't show up, but it's also unfair on the parent if they're working. I mean, I think a lot of people, you're an entrepreneur, you have the flexibility, but I mean, some people in jobs don't have that flexibility.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And so I think those, constantly feeling like, okay, I'm not able to do it, and then realizing like, okay, I'll explain it to my kid or why I can't do this, and I'll have those tough discussions when I need to, but I can't. I know that I can't do this, and it's okay.
You have to be okay with it. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Which I think it kind of takes time to get to. It took me a while to get to that.
I think we also as women, we put a lot of guilt. We carry guilt in a way that men don't necessarily carry guilt.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why I say I put it on myself more than anyone else put it on. So I think it's also questioning, like, who does this matter to and why does it matter? And it ultimately doesn't make a difference.
Yeah. What was kind of like the first things you did after like you exit? Because obviously you had the option to stay, you had the option to leave. Obviously you have to stay for a while until you sort of hand over everything. And then, what did you do for yourself?
I traveled. I did a 10-day silent meditation retreat called Vipassana, which I'd been dying to do for several years and which is life-changing. One of the hardest things I've ever done. But not
speak?
Not speak, not read, not look at anyone in the eye, not write, meditate from 4 a.m.
Not read? Okay.
Nothing. Meditation from 4 a.m. to 9 p.m., and listen, they teach you along the way. I told you I didn't meditate before, but I guess I'm an intense, extreme person. I go from one to the other. But it was life-changing, hard, extremely difficult. Not talking to people is not the hard part, but not being able to exercise, read, write, anything, and just meditate.
Exercise nothing. Also?
But it's a beautiful,
you
beautiful
just
practice.
Sit in your thoughts all day?
So they teach you...
for 10 days.
For 10 days, they'll teach you day by day, a type of meditation called Vipassana that's really linked to a theory around, philosophy around life and happiness. Ultimately, it teaches you to be able to manage the ups and downs of life. So, the theory behind it is that everything rises and passes away in this universe, and that it will exist as long as you're putting thought and energy behind it. Like in the beginning, you're in serious pain. You're like, I can't sit here. This is so painful. And then towards the end, you're sitting. It's really, really painful. You can't move. You're sitting. And in the beginning, you're like, oh my God, you're going to have to amputate my leg, like so dramatic about it. And then towards the end, you still feel the pain, but you're able to just acknowledge the pain and keep going. And so it's physical, emotional, intellectual journey that you go through in those 10 days. I don't usually tell people to do it because it's very difficult. I'd say if you're called to do it, but don't do it unless you stay for the full 10 days. Don't leave in the middle. But I did that, and that was huge. Spent time with my family. I went and spent time with my parents. You know, my parents live in the US. I could never take time off and go spend time with them, like things like that.
Yeah.
So, and then I really just started exploring other industries. I was so in food and in MUNCH. You know, once you realize that, like, oh wow, there's other things that exist and that are actually, you know, really, really interesting. It's exciting.
Yeah. So what caught your attention?
So when I started thinking through, okay, what I want to do next, really.
When I met you after the exit, I think you wanted to do something around psychology.
Yeah. So I had gone through a lot, you know, on my own personal journey. And I remember when we had talked after the exit, I was looking at something around mental health and really thinking through how I can play a part in helping others in that sphere. And I haven't forgotten about that. That's something still important to me. But there were the places I started exploring. I explored around the mental health area. I explored around neuroscience because that's always been a passion of mine, and space. So I think that's ultimately where I landed. I'm now the chief commercial officer of a company in Europe called the Exploration Company that builds capsules for low Earth orbit, lunar landers, and launchers. And so it's a huge shift, as you can imagine, from food to space exploration. But it's just a testament to how if you want to do something, there is no reason why you can't do it. And it's another example of, you know, people thought it was cute, or like, that's funny.
Oh, Dana, you want to work in space. That's nice.
Like, why would you work for a space company? And, you know, even people.
Why would a space company hire you?
Why would a space company hire me, right? And that's, and it's not people, and it's not people that are trying to put me down. It's people that love me, but that are kind of like, okay.
They don't want you to be heartbroken.
Right? And ultimately recognizing that people aren't trying to bring you down, but that if you want to do something, don't talk yourself out of it. Like, just
so you're not the example of, you know, they give this example about men and women and kind of filling the qualifications on a CV and how, you know, usually.
No, I've learned not to be that way. I've learned that women will say, oh, I don't have these things, and men will say, oh, I have most of them, or whatever. No, I've learned not to be that way. I've learned middle ground, to be able to say, I have all of these things, but I don't have these, but I'm willing to learn. And that's exactly what I did. I said, I do not have a space background. I am not.
Clearly.
Yeah, like, I do not have a space background, and I'm not technical, and I'm not a rocket scientist. But here's everything I bring to the table, and I think the space industry needs it, because you guys are talking to each other. You need a non-space person to come in and help build this business. And I'll learn the technical stuff. And they said, okay, let's do it. And I mean, I know we're not here to talk about that, but I know that I've proven my worth to the industry, not just the company. I'm speaking on global stages for space exploration, on lunar economy, and what the future is of space. I think it's really important to call that out, to say there is nothing that you cannot do if you put your mind to it, you're willing to learn, and you're transparent about what you have, what you don't have, and what you're willing to do. And don't downplay what you have.
But how do you get this connection? I mean, this is not network, right? I mean, this couldn't have happened through a recruiter.
So no, not a recruiter, network, but it's also around being willing to put yourself out there. And I ended up I had met the CEO. She and I had a mutual investor, and I had met her years before at a conference. Nurturing relationships has been really important to me in my success. I think also being willing to reach out to people and have just discussion. So before even talking to her, I talked to so many people. You know, I would go to the Endeavor Network because I'm an Endeavor entrepreneur, and I'd be like, hey, does anybody work in space? And they
you wanted space. It's not like, you know, it sort of happened.
Both. Okay. I had told them space, neuroscience. I was like, I'm interested in these industries. Like, who can I speak to? And they were like, okay, let's see. And they were like, they kind of gave me a funny look. And they're like, okay, if you want to talk to
I thought it was just like serendipity or something.
No, it was both. It was me saying, these are the industries that I could see myself playing a part in. But I wasn't saying I want to work for a company. You could have said I could be an advisor. You could have said anything. Like it wasn't.
VC.
I was open. I didn't have a set idea. It ended up being this way, but it was more around just having the curiosity to say, what's happening? Like I don't necessarily have a set idea of what I want, but what's happening? Explain to me what are the dynamics? What's going on in the US? What's going on in Europe? What's happening in the Middle East? Where do you see the opportunity? What do you work on? What are your biggest challenges? And just learning from people, and then you'll be surprised where you land. And that's how I landed in VC, and how MUNCH happened, and now how I have happened in space. Just having that curiosity and confidence and being able to put yourself out there, and being ignored or told like, what are you doing?
Yeah. It's interesting because also when, after Nabish, for me, a lot of people, when I went out talking to people about potentially getting a job, because there was a 2-year period in my life after Nabish where I was interested to get a job. I was thinking, okay, I want to have a job with impact, maybe with government, maybe some kind of like ecosystem play or something. And then people would ask me, oh, but can you get a job after having been an entrepreneur? Yeah. What is this? Where does that come from?
No, and I think it's
Did
funny.
you have that question?
No, I didn't have that question. What I think is funny is when people say, like, oh, my job is so stressful. Maybe I should just start my own business. Like that. That is funny.
Cute.
But people didn't say, so no one said, can you get a job? Like, can you get a job? I think people were just like, but why? Like, what would it be? And I even asked myself, like, okay, after having done this, what would job or what company or what would the thing need to be for me to want to do it, right? And and to be very honest, one of the things I wanted was like, I don't want the same level of stress.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be working on something high impact.
You hear that, corporate people? It's less stress in corporate world.
To be fair, it's still a growing business. It's not fully corporate, but having your own business is a whole nother level. Being able to say, I'm good for a few years.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be doing something exciting and different and challenging.
Yeah. And also, learn with everyone else, but not at your own kind of expense and stress and finances and everything, and have the opportunity to breathe and
rebuild yourself. Again, everything is choices. And so now I've chosen, a big part is investing in myself.
So after all of this, if you were to invest in an entrepreneur, what would sort of like the characteristics that you would look for?
I think it would need to be someone that has solid foundation. For me personally, again, and maybe I'm a bit old school, but I need to know that you can build a financial model, you can answer questions on the analytics of your business, you understand the metrics and you're able to answer. And if you're not able to answer, you come back with a clear answer on the actual metrics and math and all of those pieces. I think that's incredibly important that an entrepreneur has that. I've spoken to too many entrepreneurs that, have sent me their financial model, which is not, something that I would consider strong enough as a financial model, or that don't understand the metrics of their business, whether it be ROI, CAC, LTV, any of those things. And I think that's an important thing for me specifically. Someone that's able to be agile. And I know that you won't necessarily know that from one conversation with a person, but you can gauge it from the way that they react to your questions and your feedback. If they're able to, pivot and answer your question and be creative in the way that they answer, if you give them okay, well, what if this happens? What are you going to do? And they're able to really think through okay, well, then I would probably look into this, or someone that can say, that's a really good point. I didn't think about that. That's the sorts of characteristics that I would look for in an entrepreneur, because an idea is important, but where you start and where you end in a business are never going to be the same place. So it's never an idea that I'm going to fall in love with. It's more so trusting the entrepreneur and trusting that the entrepreneur is going to be able to pivot and find solutions. And that to me is the most important piece. Also, I'm not the type I think no, the industry is less important to me. I think there's a lot of like sexiness, like, oh, this is the sexy industry. That's not important to me. I think you can build very solid businesses that are not in sexy industries, and that's important.
Is there a way to test resilience? Because everyone talks about resilience in entrepreneurs. I mean, you were extremely resilient. Actually, every entrepreneur needs to be resilient because the business is going to go through a lot of hard times at various scales, but it will.
To test resilience, I mean, at the start, it's tough to be able to test resilience because they're just starting out. So I think early stage is probably harder to assess that. But as you know, once a company gets to Series A, I think you should be able to assess how resilient the team is. I think if I were looking to assess the resilience at early stage, would be to put them on the spot and say, okay, what if this were to happen? What would you do? Like, how would you plan on solving this? We've identified this as a challenge. What are you going to do? And I think, you know, it might be intimidating to entrepreneurs, but also I think that's an important test to be able to face, because if you're not able to answer those questions, then you're not going to be able to do it in real life either. Nice. It's really hard.
Nice. So like mock scenario planning. Cool. Okay, I'm going to wrap up and we're going to play a game.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So I have to credit this idea to a good friend of mine, Rami Saad. So he was doing a fireside chat with me recently, and he kind of threw this game at me.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, it's pretty cool. So I'm gonna say two things, and you have to pick only one.
Okay.
You have to pick, one or the other.
Okay.
All right. So burger or salad?
Salad.
Time travel, past or future?
Future.
Okay. Data driven or gut feel?
Data driven.
Really? Okay, you came to Dubai on a
I don't know, you
on a
put
gut
me in the,
instinct.
you said what do
I thought you were
going
gonna go for gut feel, but instinct. Okay, night owl or early riser?
Oh, night owl.
A night in or go out and socialize?
That's tough. Night in or go out and socialize? Go out and socialize.
Okay,
but that's a tough one.
Okay, last question: invisibility or teleportation?
Teleportation.
All right. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing and telling us about your journey and all your learnings. Super helpful.
Thank you for having me on. This is really fun.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Conversations with Loulou with Dana Baki. I hope you enjoyed it and found it insightful. As usual, don't forget to check out conversationswithloulou.com to listen to the other episodes. And please leave us a rating and a review wherever you listen to this podcast or wherever you watch it. It really helps in getting the show discovered, and I would really appreciate it. See you in a few weeks.